Ronald Reagan was by no means a free trader. He thought about trade, about how you would expect a smart, patriotic, pro-American person to think about trade.
Well, restricting trade in the long run is bad for everybody, especially for the working people of America. Protecting one domestic industry risks retaliation against another. For example, American agriculture would be dealt a devastating blow if our trading partners shut their markets to our farm products in retaliation to American protectionism. Trade and commerce are the lifeblood of job creation. The flow of goods and services between countries and peoples is a stimulus to growth and prosperity. This isn't a time for us to be afraid, to be erecting barriers, or to be trying to shut out the world. Instead, we should be working to open markets, to increase our productivity, and to meet the competition head-on. And don't let anyone tell you we can't do it.
And then the other thing that we have to do is we have to realize that trade deficits are bad.
The balance of trade has become a very emotional issue. Some claim our trade deficit has cost us millions of jobs. Congress is awash in bills calling for trade sanctions and retaliation. But look at the facts. In 1980, we had a trade surplus, and about 99 million Americans had jobs. Today, we have a trade deficit, and almost 107 million Americans are working. Despite a growing trade deficit, we've gained over 7.5 million new jobs since 1980. Our free, open, and growing economy has put more Americans to work in 1985 than ever before in our history. We've created more jobs in the last 3 years than Europe and Japan combined. The surest way to destroy those jobs and throw Americans out of work is to start a trade war. And one of the first victims of a protectionist trade war will be America's farmers, who have it tough enough already. A news story the other day said protectionist fervor on the Hill is stronger than it has been since the 1930s. Well, now, some of us remember the 1930s, when the most destructive trade bill in history, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, helped plunge this nation and the world into a decade of depression and despair. From now on, if the ghost of Smoot-Hawley rears its ugly head in Congress, if Congress crafts a depression-making bill, I'll fight it, and whether it's a tax, trade, or farm legislation that comes across my desk, my primary consideration will be whether it is in the long-run economic interest of the United States. And any tax hike or spending bill or protectionist legislation that doesn't meet the test of whether it advances America's prosperity must and will be opposed. From 1790 to 1875, this country, all that 85 years, ran a trade imbalance. And in those years, we were becoming the great economic power that we are in the world today. This recovery, the greatest one we've known in decades, has been done with this same trade imbalance. Now, in the 1930s, in that depression that I mentioned earlier in my remarks, in that depression, 25% unemployment, the worst depression the world has ever known. We had a trade surplus every one of those 10 years. Another thing we don't count is that from abroad, that is not counted in our export figures, are the billions of dollars of foreign capital that has been invested in the United States, invested in our private industries, invested in our government bonds, if you will, things of this kind, because we are the best and safest investment in the world today.